complete our journey to Laogao, and Bruno was pinning his hopes on the llama. Since persuading llamas to organize camel trains isn't my forte, I let Bruno do all the talking. It transpired that this llama had a rather 19th century approach to life. His eldest son had followed him into the church, while the younger one had gone into trade as a camel driver. Bruno's powers of persuasion finally paid off.
We get the 3 camels here.
Oh, we can get some camels.
They could only spare 3 camels, which meant we'd be going on foot while the camels carried the bags. It would be slow and hard work in the soft sand, but Ha Su, our rather shy camel driver, thought we could reach Laogao in 2 or 3 days.
I asked them if they can climb. He said yes.
No problem.
Very confident.
Straight
Very
up.
confident.
Excellent. Just the camels we need.
I could understand why Buddhist monks seeking spiritual seclusion might have built a monastery here. But as we trudged on, seeing no sign of life whatsoever, I still couldn't work out why anyone else would want to live in this astonishing place. I also found it hard to imagine there was enough work for Ha Su and his ships of the desert. But he said they kept busy, and besides, the camels provided more than one revenue stream.
They can get from the wool 1,000 yuan.
1,000 yuan. That's about 60 pounds.
Yeah.
100 US dollars.
I couldn't help wondering how many second-hand car salesmen Ha Su's herd would keep in coats. Most dunes are soft and permanently shifting, but the monsters here have reached this height because they're built on layers of solidified sand.
This is what I was talking about, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard. Yeah. It's solid. Yeah.
During occasional wet periods over the millennia, calcium blown up from the lakes combined with rain and sand to make a cement-like crust. This stabilized the sand beneath and provided a base for the next layer of wind-blown sand. It's this sandwiching process that's created the sand dunes.
Every step reveals something new. Yeah.
To be honest, I'd rather lost interest in the view. Getting up and down these monster dunes was all I could focus on. That and the fact that since the sun was rapidly setting, the temperature had dropped to -10 degrees centigrade.
So where's Ha Su going to sleep?
Ha Su sleeps in his blanket and his fur coat.
Ha Su, despite living in China, was clearly a real Mongolian. Indeed, without any hot rocks, he must have been even tougher than Aldra. Not so me and Bruno.
I have to admit, I found today quite hard going.
I'm sorry to say that today that was like go for a walk.
Easy.
Yeah, compared to the
Start easy.
get up to the mega.
The next morning, we sent Ha Su ahead with the camels to set up camp just a few kilometers further on. We were surrounded by the sand dunes, and I'd realized that any travel writer worth their salt would have to get to the top of one of them.
Choose from around here.
Oh yeah, let's see.
That one?
Got few.
That one there.
Ah, that is a big one.
That one.
That is a big one.
And that one over there.
That's the highest one there.
If you're going to climb a big dune, you might as well know how big it is. So first up, we took an altitude reading at the base.
1,237 meters. How high do you reckon it is? Your guess?
I guess it's 350 meter.
350?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not quite as confident as that. I reckon 295.
Oh.
And what's riding on this? Come on, Bruno, you must have a lot of money in a Swiss bank somewhere.
Oh God. If you just stick me on that,
a
it's
bottle of whiskey.
difficult. Yeah.
Bottle of whiskey.
A bottle of whiskey with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, you're on.
There was no way we were going to make it straight up the sheer slip face, so Bruno picked a route which took us up the ridges. We'd known this would be a tough climb, but it was much more grueling than either of us had expected.
The sand is so soft. Even on the ridges. Even on the ridges, you can't go anywhere, you know?
I know.
You can't find a firm.
I know, it's desperate, isn't it? You think you're going somewhere, but half the time you're not.
Yeah. Here, one step up, half back.
Yeah. But it'll be worth it.
Next time I climb a Gobi mega dune, remind me to bring my ski poles.
I've been reduced to the status of a four-legged small animal, Bruno, just to go up there
yeah,
without sticks.
But we try to get the ridge now. Maybe you can get up.
It was at this stage that Bruno revealed a rather annoying habit. He had tried to encourage me by saying we were nearly there,
I can see the final ridge,
only to slap me down in the next breath.
but it's still a lot of way to go.
I can see it. I'm going to have to crawl to the summit.
That was said in jest, but this final slope was so steep that without poles, all fours was the only way to make any progress upwards at all.
It's real killer. It's really soft sand.
Now, if you look around, they are moved all deeper now. The other mountains,
They are.
sand mountains.
They're nothing, aren't they? This is the big one.
I think that's the highest point.
Careful, Bruno.
Oh yeah, otherwise
go down-
we are
down
rolling
sooner.
down. We're rolling down.
Sooner than we wanted to.
Oh yeah.
So let's see. Hey, you know what? This says 5,000 feet.
Yeah, let's see
What was it down there?
what the GPS says.
5,000 feet, and at the bottom it was 3,800. Well, that is almost 350 meters.
I'd lost the bottle of whiskey, but I didn't care. On top of one of the biggest sand dunes in the world, the only way is down.
I can't stop, Bruno. I can't stop.
The next morning was day 3 of our journey to Lao Gao and his house in the middle of the Badain-Geran Sand Sea. Overnight, the weather had taken a turn for the worse, and a biting wind had blown up a sandstorm.
I don't see anything else than sand, you?
No, actually, sand wherever I look.
Dust from the Gobi has been found 6,000 kilometers away in Alaska. On a day like today, it felt like it could make it anywhere on the planet.
We just stopped here for a spot of lunch in a relatively wind-free zone, but even so, there's been a lot of sand with it, and it's crunching in my teeth as I speak. Really hard going, and the wind is biting most of the time, and it really is as if the demons are saying I shouldn't be here.
After lunch, the wind dropped, but the going got even tougher.
I think now the next couple of kilometers for us, the most difficult, I would say, in the whole desert.
Really?
Yeah.
The four-legged Iron Man pressed on relentlessly, but I was beginning to regret abandoning Shu and his lovely Jeep.
How many more of these?
One more. There is the track.
There's always one more with you.
Oh.
Really tired.
Yeah.
Finally, as we reached a vast depression, Bruno said the words I'd been longing to hear.
If we move on a little further, we will see his house.
But once we got down onto the flat, Bruno realized he'd got it wrong.
Depressed, because it's not Lao Gao.
Not again.
No, it's the previous depression, one before. And we have to climb that small little hill. I mean, not really little.
Small little.
I'm underestimating, but we have to get over. No other way.
But you said about 7 times. This is it.
Yeah. I was also hoping, you know. And sometimes the hope is moving in front, and the reality is back. I can promise you now. Once we cross that mountain, you will see the paradise. Come on.
His stream of feeble excuses didn't make me feel any better. In fact, I have to admit, I had a bit of a sense of humour failure.
Never walk across this bloody desert with an Austrian.
As we toiled up the next ridge, the thought occurred to me that what we didn't even know was whether Lao Gao was going to be in.
That must be the view of heaven. Yoo-hoo! Lao Gao! Lao Gao!
I can't actually see a house, Bruno.
Yeah, you see, that's him.
You know, I'm only going to believe it when I actually arrive. I wait till I got that cup of tea in my hand.
Lao Gao! Ni hao, ni hao, ni hao, ni hao, ni hao, ni hao, ni hao. Lao Ban Yo, very old friend.
I'm sorry to say that after walking from dawn to beyond dusk and a few false arrivals, far from matching Bruno's glee at seeing his saviour, I was possibly a bit surly.
I'm glad to see you exist, lad. Asu, Nick, let's go in.
I'm very, very, very tired. I wanted to get on the camel, I admit that. I would have got on the camel, but I left it to the end where the slopes were too steep. So I couldn't. I had to keep walking. But we made it.
The next morning, after 11 hours uninterrupted slumber, I finally got to ask Lao Gao the question that had been troubling me since I'd first heard about him.
Why did you come to this desert? And why come to this piece of desert?
Oh, 水种主要呀，水这个人生活啊，这个蔬菜啊，分析啊，你这个水就不行。
He says it's very good here.
Well, yes, I can see that. But how did he know that before he came?
They came from Gansu province, and at that time the life was very big poverty.
Really?
Yeah.
It was hard in Gansu?
Yeah.
Blimey, it must have been hard there to come to here.
Yeah, it must have been straight from here.
Extraordinary.
Later, I worked out that his family were probably refugees from the Great Leap Forward famine of 1959. But Lao Gao clearly loved his life here because he never seemed to stop smiling.
But why this particular spot?
It's the water, Nick, that made them live here. It's much better than other ones that sold you with.
Yeah.
Like the nomads in the Biga Valley and the Carez builders of Turpan, unfrozen water is the key to survival in a freezing desert. With a permanent supply of sweet well water, the family's herds of camels and goats had prospered, and their manure had fertilized the thin and sandy soil. But as Lao Gao